Hey guys, my name is Deb Marnie and I'm from Aussie Maille, and this is our chain mail tutorial channel. Hey guys, big hi, hello, welcome, how are you? Thanks for popping in today and seeing me. It's really great to see you here. So today I have a weave tutorial for you. This weave is aimed a little bit more towards intermediate, advanced mailers. It's just a little bit more tricky in its construction. But if you take your time and do it slowly, guys, I'm sure you'll be fine. All right, just get on with it, Deb. I hear you saying. All right, the weave, guys, is called Voodoo weave. So let's jump straight into it. Okay, guys, so I've got some sample pieces made up today for you of the Voodoo weave. So coming up here on the side of the screen will be the rings that I used to make these particular pieces, and they'll also be listed down in the description section that you can find under this video. So either click see more if you're on a PC, or if you're on a mobile device there'll be a little arrow, click that and it'll all pop up for you. But to run through this with you, so this one over here is our 14 gauge AWG 1.6mm diameter wire. Now the ring IDs I chose for this, the anodized ones, the lovely violet rings, they are 5/16 of an inch or 7.94mm, and the smaller bright aluminium rings, those are 4.75mm ID. The next one here is our 16 gauge AWG version, so that is 1.2mm diameter wire. The two ring sizes here, the larger rings are 5.75mm ID, and the smaller rings are 1/8 of an inch or 3.18mm. This version here is our 18 gauge AWG, that's 1mm diameter wire. The rings here, the coloured ones, are 3/16 of an inch, 4.76mm, and the smaller ones are 3mm ID. Now I did also attempt a 20 gauge AWG version, so that's 0.8mm diameter wire. The first rings I chose for these ones, the large ring was 5/32 of an inch or 3.97mm, with the small ring being 2.50mm, and I found the 5/32 to be too large. So 5/32 is just under 4 mils, so I went down to 3.75mm, which is these rings here. And although these work and they create a lovely dense weave, they are a little bit of a bear to work with. Okay, it is a little bit fiddly, it is a little bit tight, and this weave is a ring hog and it takes a long time to make up. And as you can see, I got frustrated and stopped. So I did enough work to work out that it works, but it is a little bit extra, a little bit more work involved. I particularly like the 18 gauge version. I think it's lovely if you want the colour, and the 16 gauge is lovely. I feel the 14 gauge version is verging on a little bit too loose for my tastes, but that may be perfect for you. Okay, so to prep for this weave, I would suggest pre-closing all your small rings. So I'm going to be working in the 14 gauge AWG version for you today. So these are the 4.75mm ID or 3/16 of an inch if you prefer imperial. So pre-close all of your small rings. It just makes the weaving a whole lot easier, and it's up to you whether you pre-open your large rings or not. It depends on the way you like to work. I also created a little, let's call it a cheat sheet for myself. It may not make much sense to you at the moment, but help me visualize the positioning of some of these rings and where I needed to feed these in. I did outside in, and these are the shapes that the outside in rings take, and then inside to outside, those are the positioning that those rings take, which is these two that you can see here, and then the outside in are the pair above. So that may not make much sense to you right now, but it did help me as I was learning to do this weave. So you may want to pause this and do yourself your own little cheat sheet like this, or you may not need it, but that was just something that I found helpful when I started this weave. Okay, so to start our weave off, we're going to take up one of our large rings and we're going to pop on 6 of our small pre-closed rings. Okay, so I've got 6 of those on. And then we want to separate these 6 rings out into sets of 3. And then taking up another large ring, I'm going to, holding my work like this, I'm going to feed this through our 3 rings here, Mobiusing our large ring at the same time. So that simply means I'm going to go through all of these rings. So I'm going to go through these 3, but then I'm also going to come down through the large ring in the middle so that I create this Mobius. Okay, so we're going to be doing this with all of our large rings. So you just need to be comfortable with that concept as well. As I said, this is aimed more towards an intermediate, mailer. And you're going to need to understand the concept of Mobiusing rings. So to start with, we're going to put that first ring down through there like that. And before we close this one up, I'm going to pop on 3 more of our pre-closed rings. Okay, so our work looks like this at the moment, and I want to mirror that positioning on the other side. Okay, so we want to make sure that our large ring follows the same path as this, so it goes down through that large ring, picking up all the small rings at the same time, and then before closing we're going to pop on 3 more pre-closed rings. Okay, so our work looks like this. So you can see that our new large rings are mirroring each side there, and we've got all our sets of small rings. Now I'm just going to add another large ring, and we want to bring this into our Mobius here. Okay, so I'm just going to bring that down, and I'm picking up the 2 large rings that are already in weave. Okay, going straight through all those small rings. We're not going to pop any small rings on this time, we're just going to close that up and take up another ring, and we're going to do the same on the other side. We're going to bring this down through the center of our Mobius there. So we've got now a 3 ring Mobius made out of our large rings. Make sure you're picking up both of those large rings that are already in weave, and then close that up. Okay, so you can see we've got our mirrored Mobiuses going on there. Now these 2 rings are going to be the rings that we attach our clasp to, so I'm just going to, at this stage, feed a twist tie through there, and you can add the clasp later when you're ready. So this is what our work looks like now. So it doesn't really matter which side you start this on. You can start this side where our large ring here in the middle goes down, or you can start it on the other side where that large ring in the middle is rounding up. It really doesn't matter. Okay, so looking at our work like this, we want to now take up another large ring, and we're going to join our 2 sets of 3 small rings down here. Now, to work out which way we want to feed our ring, we need to look at the previous ring. So this ring, you can see, is going down, and if we look at our chart here that I did, our little cheat sheet, that's this position here, okay? And that one said that we went from the outside in and then the inside out. Now, what that means is when that ring gets fed, it goes from the outside to the inside, and then it goes from the inside to the outside. So we want to create our next ring, which is an inside out. Okay. So to do that, we go down to our new set of rings here, and we want to come in. We pick up our 3, and when we Mobius, we go from the inside out. Okay, so that means we go from the inside of the large ring, being the center of the weave, to the outside of our weave. So that is inside out. And then we bring that ring around, and we want to bring it through the other side. And the other half of that, if you remember on my cheat sheet, said outside in. And what that means is we want to come from the outside of our large ring that's already in weave, and we want to come in. Now this is going to be difficult to show you, and I'm really sorry about that. But if you understand how rings are Mobiused, hopefully you'll be able to understand this concept. So at all times, I'm always picking up those 3 silver rings. The outside in and inside out refers to how your large rings interact. Now don't be worried if you didn't get that this time. I will go through it again for you. But by doing that, you can see that we've now created the, let's call it a frown, okay? It looks like a frown. This one looks like a smile. This one looks like a frown. So we've created this look, okay? Now the other half of this is, when we're doing this inside out, is our next rings want to do this. You can see this positioning here. So you can see our rings up here look more like this one up here. We now want to create our next set of large rings to look like this, and that means we go from the inside out again. And what that looks like for this step is we go back here to our Mobius that we're working on, and we feed down from the inside of our weave. Okay, we're going down from the inside, we're picking up both of our large rings that are already in weave, and before we finish, we pop on 3 of our pre-closed rings. Okay, and you can see that that ring has come from the inside and is going to the outside. We do the same on this side. We go from the inside, so we go down. See if I can get this close enough without blurring. We go down in here from the inside of our Mobius. Okay, so inside refers to the center of the weave. So we're going from the inside out for our Mobius, and we're popping on 3 pre-closed rings. And your work looks like this. Now we want to join our 2 bottom rings here, and we did an inside out before, so we want to do this one up here, which was an outside in. And to do that, we take up our open large ring, and when we feed into our large ring here, we're going to go from the outside in. So we've picked up our large ring, and then we're going to go down and scoop up all 3 of our small rings. So to mirror that on the other side, we're going to want to go from the inside out. So pick up all 3 of your small rings, and then when you go through the large ring, you go from the inside to the outside. Okay, can you see that in there? Can you see how that ring has fed from the inside out? So our first went from the outside in, okay, we fed it from the outside into the middle. And then to pick up this side, we go continue through the inside to the outside. And then we close that up. Okay, and our work looks like this. Now remember, that was an outside in weave, so when we place our two next rings, we also want to feed them from the outside of the weave. And what that looks like is we just want to go straight down on the outside of our Mobius, picking both those rings up, and then popping on 3 pre-closed rings. Okay, and then we want to place our next ring again on this side. We want to insert this from the outside. We don't want to insert it here, which is the inside of our weave. We want to insert it here, which is the outside, and we go down. Sorry about that. And we go down, picking up both of our large rings that are already in weave, going down through the middle from the outside. And then before closing, we pop on 3 pre-closed rings. And we close that up. And you can see that that forces those rings to go to the outside of our weave. And then we want to join our 2 sets of 3 rings up. Okay, so this one was an outside in, so our next one needs to be an inside out. Okay, remember, that means that we want to Mobius our ring here on this first side by going from the inside out. Okay, but when we pick it up on this side, we actually want to mirror that, so it goes from the outside in. Okay, you can see that it's coming from the outside in, and then we close this up. And there you go. So we just keep repeating those steps for you until you reach the length that you require. But I'll go through another set with you, just so we can, you know, be sure that we've got this. As I said, it is a little bit tricky. So, you know, don't get too concerned if you don't grab this concept straight away. Okay, so this is where we are at the moment. So as I said, it doesn't matter which side. If you put your piece down and you pick it up and you work and it's on the other side, it doesn't matter. As long as you're looking back and taking note of the positioning of the previous rings, you'll be fine. So you'll note here we've got our little frown ring, but if we flip it over to the other side, we've got our smile ring. So as long as we take note of what our rings are doing and adjust accordingly to the position of the previous rings, you'll be fine with this. It's not one of those rings that if you put it down and pick it up, it's a disaster if you pick it up the wrong way. You just need to make sure that when you do pick it up, you take notice of where the rings are and adjust your pattern accordingly. Okay, so our last ring, our last large ring here was our frowny ring, which is an inside out ring. So that means our next rings have to go from the inside out. So that means that when we place this large ring, we're coming from the inside of our weave. We're not trying to put it in through out here. This won't work. We won't be able to do that. We want to come from the inside into our spiral that you can see in there. We want to fit our ring down in there. Okay, and it slips down in there and it picks up the other 2 large rings that are already in weave. Okay, we pop it out the other side. You can see that it's picked up those 2 rings there. All right, and before we close it up though, we want to pop on another set of 3 pre-closed rings. We close that up and our work looks like that. So we want to repeat that on the other side here as well. So again, we're coming from the inside out. So that means we're going in from the center of our weave to the outside of our weave, just down through the Mobius there. And we pop on 3 pre-closed rings before we start. Okay, and my twist tie's just come off, so I'll just feed it through here just to help with the confusion. Okay, so we've now got our loose rings here and we want to join them together. So that we're going to, this is where we change the direction. Our last ring was a frown, our next ring needs to be a smile, and again, to get that smile, we want to go from the outside in on the first side and then from the inside out on the second set of rings. Okay, so from outside in, that means we just place our ring from the outside, making sure we go through all the silver rings. Make sure you pick all 3 of them up. It is easy to miss one of those rings and you only pick up 2. So make sure you've got all 3 of those rings and you've gone through the large ring from the outside in. And then I always find it helpful to just let your work turn around. And from here, we want to go from the inside out. Okay, so that means we need to pick up all of our 3 silver rings as well. But when we go through our large ring, we want to make sure we're going from the inside of our weave to the outside of our weave. Okay, like you can see there. So make sure you don't pick up just the silver rings. You must always go through the large rings as well. And we close that up. And when we turn that around, you can see we've got our little smiley face. So our little smiley face means that the next 2 rings go from the outside in as well. So what that means is when we come here, we want to come in from the outside of our Mobius. Okay, so we're going down through the weave like this, going from the outside to the inside. Okay, you can see outside to the inside. You can see that there. Sorry, it is really difficult to show, but you can see our ring here is at an angle and it's going from the outside of our weave to the inside of our weave. And then before we close that up, pop on 3 more of our pre-closed rings and close that up. Okay, so our work looks like this. And now we want to do the same on the other side. So taking up another opened ring. Again, we want to go from the outside to the inside. So that means going down into our weave from the outside so that it comes out on the inside of our piece. Popping on 3 of our pre-closed rings and then close it up. Okay, and you can see that that's now forming these rings that do the, you know, this outside look. So we're going to create the little frowny bit now, this one up here. And that means that we go from the inside out for our first set of rings, and for our second set of rings here on the other side, from the outside in. So that just means we're picking up all 3 of our silver rings and we're picking up our large ring, going from the inside of our weave to the outside of our weave. Okay, and then on the other side, because we're mirroring that, we want to go from the outside of our weave to the inside of our weave. So that looks like that. Okay, you can see that I've come from the outside and my ring ends up in the inside. and then I close that up, and it looks like that. So you just keep repeating all those steps, outside in, inside out, until you reach the length that you require. And then to finish it up, I'm just going to place 2 more rings here like I have up at the beginning. So I'm just going to look at whatever position, whether it's a frowny face or a smiley face section, and place these appropriately. So for the frowny face, I'm going to go inside and go out. And this time I'm not going to add any small rings, I'm just going to close that up. But let's say your last one was a smiley face one, which means we need to go from the outside in. So all I've done here is flipped it over to the other side, because the other side is just the opposite. So to show you what that looks like, we just go from the outside in and we close that up. And then you would just add your clasp as you need. But there you go, guys. That's how you do the Voodoo weave. All right, my lovelies. Well, that is it. That is the video tutorial for today. I hope you found it of great interest and is useful to you. If you did find it useful, guys, don't forget to give it a thumbs up here on YouTube. Share the video if you like. If you're not a subscriber, maybe consider doing that for us. That would be really awesome. It helps out the channel a lot. Comments or questions, leave them down below in the description section. I'll do my best to get back to you. Check some of the other content out we've got here on the channel. There is a heap here for you for mailers of all different levels. And last but not least, guys, don't forget to give the link up here in the corner a little bit of love and affection. That's where we sell the bits and bobs and you know whats. You're going to need to whip up this weave and many others. Alright guys, thanks once again for popping in and seeing me. It is really good to see you and catch up with you. I hope you're all keeping safe and well, and I'll get to see you again sometime in the very near future. Bye.